Welcome to Whachacha's Tabletop World, a channel devoted to the love of board gaming. My name is Sweetness Whachacha, and today this is my overview and thoughts on Magic Maze Tower, which is a standalone game in the Magic Maze universe. Magic Maze is a cooperative game where you're going to be going through and completing these adventures. And an adventure is basically a puzzle. In each of the modules, there's 15, and they're consumable. They're not like a riddle though, where once you know, like, hey, that's the answer to the riddle. It's more of a tactical kind of a game. Now, each of the 15 adventures will be comprised of either 4 small puzzles, and then you flip them over and create one larger puzzle, or as many as 8. So there's actually 91 different puzzles in the box. Now, there are some differences between the original Magic Maze and this game, of course. The original was a timed game. This is not a timed game. You are, however, playing thematically. The last game you were stealing from a mall, and now you've been placed into this dungeon tower. So you're trying to escape. The communication rules are the same. You're not allowed to really talk. There's no red piece to like put in front of someone and say, hey, it's your turn to move. But essentially, it is no longer timed. You're just trying to go through the puzzle. So let's take a look at some of the pieces here. Now, you're going to get a couple of tiles that you can use in your Magic Maze game, okay, but those are not used in this game. And you're going to get the pawns for the different characters, the elf, the dwarf, the barbarian, the mage, and then the mage's little sister, who is a teleporter. Then you're going to get these little handy-dandy reminders, which are going to be useful for you to remember the rules. They're just player aids, not super necessary. And then each player is going to get one of these directionals. You're going to keep them so that the north is in the same direction, and then like, if you had a 4-player game, this player can only move pawns in this direction, this player can only move pawns in this direction. There'll be different splits if you have different numbers of players. In a solo game, which is mainly what I'm going to be covering here, you're not going to use those. This huge stack of puzzles, okay, which is going to be the first, are going to be a series of 6 puzzles. So that's the front puzzle, the back puzzle, and once you complete one, you're done. These green ones here are 6 tutorials, so they're just going to teach you how to play the game, all the various rules. Then from there on, and it doesn't matter if you see these, there's no like spoiler here, but you'll take like, so this number 1 here, this is 1, 2, 3, 4, so then you would remove these. But I'm just going to show you each of these modules. So an adventure, of which there are 15, as I said, you'll play through each of these in any order you want to. So you'll just do all 4 of these. Doesn't matter, they don't connect in any way. On the blue side, so once you've completed each of these in turn, so you played that one, you played this one, you played this one, and you played this one, you'd be done with those. Then you would flip them over, and you would make this picture in the center. So you have your little goblin in the center here, and then you would play through this whole map. That would be one adventure. So that would be the first adventure, would be the 4 little ones, and then the 1 large one. Okay, so now you understand you have the 15 different puzzles, which is comprised of a number of smaller puzzles. Let's take a look at what makes this puzzle work. So the puzzle is going to have a couple of things here. You're going to start by putting the, like the barbarian goes on this space, starts in this space, and the elf starts in that space. And you can move around as, however you want to move around. You just can't, you have to follow these paths or whatever. But there's no real limit on movement. Now, if you're playing a multiplayer game, of course, only one player will be able to move the pawn in a certain direction. So you have to mind those rules. A couple other things you have to stand on. So if you want to move through this door, a player will have to be standing on this icon. So this will unlock that door. Any number of other characters will be able to pass through that door until you moved off of it, and now you wouldn't be able to move through. So the doors are one kind of barrier. The other kind of thing that you'll do is that once at some point before you escape the board, and you'll escape through these spaces, so the green player can escape through this one, and the yellow will escape through that one. Some of the doors will be multicolored, as you see here. Both players will escape through that one, or both figures. But before you do escape, you'll have to be on these armory spaces. So if you do this at one point, all of the spaces of this type would have to be covered, and if they are, okay, congratulations, now you're allowed to escape. There are also these ladder spaces. When you use them, you can move as far as you want. It doesn't really matter. You just have to move orthogonally. So you can move here to here, here to here, but you couldn't move, say, here to here, because that would be diagonally. So you would kind of have to figure out how to get to where you wanted to get. And lastly, all of the pieces have their own special moves. So the barbarian is able to push a player in front of them over a trap, okay? But they cannot cross the trap themselves. So that's the barbarian special power. The elf is allowed to jump over another piece, but only if it's in a line of 3. So if you were here, you couldn't jump to there. That's the elf special power. The wizard, or the mage, excuse me, once they touch that space, they'll swap with any other piece. So you can swap with that piece, but only right at that moment. And so that will open it up so you'll be able to go in different spots. And the dwarf is smaller, so they're allowed to fit through these smaller orange doors. So you can go through those doors. That's their special power. And the teleporter is allowed to teleport next to any other of the grown-ups. This is like a child, and they don't like to be alone, so you could teleport next to this piece, or you could teleport next to this piece. You can also, if you have a single wall between you, you could teleport to that, over the wall. So that's a way you can get around certain walls. So that would allow you to exit. A couple of other features on the board. There are these airflow indicators, and you cannot go this way past them. You would always have to be able to be pushed around. Additionally, there are some tiles like this where if you're standing on that space, you can rotate this tile, and you'll see, like, if you were like this, you could rotate it, and then you'd open up a new passageway, and a character from like this board will be able to pass onto that board. There's also one that's very similar to this that you can slide the whole room as well. Okay, so that's the game. So you basically go through, for the adventure mode, you'll go through the smaller missions, so the 4 smaller missions, the blue side, flip them over, put them together, and go through that one main mission. And you'll continue doing that through all of these 15 separate games. So what are my thoughts on the game? Well, I absolutely loved Magic Maze. Loved it. I love that style of game where you're playing and they're unlocking more rules and the scenarios are getting harder and providing a harder challenge. It's very satisfying. So this game features a lot of similarities, of course. The little special rules and abilities each of the characters have. The theme, of course, is the same, and it's largely the same kind of puzzle. There are a couple of key differences, however. Now, in the last game, the wrinkle of the whole thing that made it harder to play was the fact that you were under a time constraint, which is very, it makes a simple game much more difficult, much more interesting when you're under a time constraint. So Magic Maze without the time constraint would be way too easy. It wouldn't be even really a game. You just would keep playing until you won. But the time constraint and the fact that you're trying to move quickly means you're rushing your decisions a little more and you have to move fast, and that's what makes it fun. This game has the wrinkle, the wrinkle that you can only move certain points certain way in the same way that the other game did. However, now there is no real time constraint. So that is sort of a bonus and a negative, I think, because, this is a puzzle, right? The other game is randomized. You could play each of the scenarios over and over and over again. However, this game is a consumable product. And a lot of people don't like that idea. However, for me, I don't really care. I mean, I'll play through a game. I love campaign kind of games. I love go through them once games, one and done. However, this game, I think it's not like a riddle. You wouldn't know the answer, and now you can. It's like, it was a knife of ice. Okay, now you can never play that again. This, I feel like you could play all 15 of these, which is a lot of game in there. There's 91 different puzzles in that, and then when you're all done, wait a year. I mean, you play 15 games of something, that's a pretty good chunk. Wait a year, play it again. I think you'd be totally fine. I don't think that you would. It's not like I say, it's not like a really truly consumable. Now, this was really billed as a very enjoyable solo game. It is essentially the same exact game. There is that little other wrinkle there where you can only move in one way, and that's kind of a cool thing. Also, I think it's a double-edged thing. For the solo, you're going to play through them, and you're just going to puzzle out what you're doing. As a multiplayer game, you're going to be like, I think we should move that way, and then you're going to wait for the other players. Now, that does provide a little more of a wrinkle that I think is probably a little more interesting than the solo game. I found the puzzles mostly. I've played about 30% through the game now. I think I've gotten through the first 5 adventures and the tutorial, and I don't feel like it's I think it would be a lot more interesting if you could only move the one way and you're kind of having to work more as a team. That's replacing the time element, I guess, in this style of a game. So I think that's part of it. But also I think, though, it's, as I say, it's a little more of a double-edged sword, because if you're playing with multiplayer, there's a couple of the puzzles that I played so far where I'm like, I would be really frustrated playing this. Like, some of them kind of move you around and around and around, and if the player moves you the wrong way, you'd be like, oh my god. Also, I think that you gotta kind of you kind of see what's happening. I think it's very easy to just be like, okay, let's playing myself, I just was like, okay, start it again, which is fine. You're like, I see what you're driving at. Let's start again. And so I think like that kind of like scoop real quick. Let me just put the pieces back like 2 seconds, put them back where they started, and then kind of approach the puzzle again. And so they are pretty fun. Now again, 15 adventures doesn't sound like a lot, but again, you have like these little smaller puzzles, leading up to the larger puzzles. So that's a little satisfying. It's kind of cool to rip through these little kind of like quick puzzles. And some of them are very fast. Some of them can be like 1 minute, long. You're like, move, done. And then you get the meatier, bigger puzzle to play. So in that way, you do have 91 essentially puzzles in this box. This actually reminds me a lot of Race for the Raft. Very similar style of game. It's very puzzly in the same way. You're trying to like move all the pieces to the exit. That would have significantly more randomization though, which allows it to replay a lot more. However, it can lead to some kind of feel bads. When you pull these, you have these 2 different ways, 2 different points of randomization. But like I said, it does provide more of a replayable game in some sense, but I think I prefer something like this that has more of the deterministic aspect to it, where you're really just playing your wits versus the puzzle. However, the puzzle has to be a meaty enough experience, and so far as I played, like I said, I played about 30% through the game so far. I have really enjoyed it, so I do have a positive experience about this game. I really like it. However, the puzzles are not so challenging so far. I find most of them are just kind of like, oh, quick. And then you get the larger map one, and you're like, okay, boom, okay, done. So it's like, I like to do puzzles. I like, I do the Wordle, the New York Times crossword, the Wordle, and the connections every night at midnight. They come online, and I like playing them. It's enjoyable. So I like these. I think they can act quite well as like a filler. And I also think, while this isn't a party game at all, I think that having mixed age levels, or almost like a party game thing where non-gamers can enjoy this. So I think it's definitely very, very approachable. But at this point, I'm really hoping that the puzzles become much more interesting and much more difficult, because so far they've seemed to be a little bit easier than I might have preferred. A couple other things I want to know that I like and dislike. I really like all the tools in the toolbox. I like the fact that each of the characters has a special ability that you have to use, and use properly to get through the mission. I like the different, how there's the ladders. I like the traps. I like the rotating and the sliding. You can see all these pieces together provide enough variety to make an interesting puzzle. So I really like that. One thing and again, the game is pretty inexpensive, but you could see like even after you go through these puzzles, you could see quite easily that there could be other puzzles made online, or maybe ways that you could combine the puzzles. I don't maybe not think that might work as well, but perhaps expansion packs would be quite easy. However, you would essentially be buying almost the whole game again, minus the pawns. So it seems like they would probably just put out another standalone. So I'm not sure maybe an expansion is that equitable. However, I do like that, but I do wish they had put the game itself, the artwork, it's kind of cute. You look through, like, the little holders are like in the swimming pool. The goblins are playing video games or playing games of Magic Maze, which I saw on that thing, which is kind of cool. So I like the art and stuff, and the pawns are cool. Like the sizes of them like depend on the sizes of the characters. So I like that. So the production is overall really well. I just wish that they had put in the original game, you would trigger the heist, and then you would have to escape, and you would flip over this piece, and that will let you know that you can no longer warp. In this one, they don't have like a piece, and I don't think that's a big deal, but it would have been kind of cool just to be able to, even a small token. The player boards are so big, and they don't seem to need to be that big. I wish they'd been kind of like half that size, or have them to be able to flip over knowing you've done like the activated the armory or whatever. But that's a little bit of a nitpick. Okay, so overall, really approachable, good for mixed groups and mixed ages, great as kind of a filler game, or just ripping through a whole load of these. I really love the original. This one carries on that legacy. I do enjoy a lot of it. I like the idea of going through all the puzzles. I think it works great equally as a solo game or as a group game. I think you win and lose in both of those. There's some trade-offs to each of those, so I think that's enjoyable. I do, at this point, wish that the puzzles were a little more engaging or difficult. A lot of them are quite easy or quite fast to play, but as I'm only 30% through, so and will I play through the rest? Of course, I'm very interested in trying it. I do enjoy them, even if they aren't as challenging or as interesting as I'm hoping for yet, but as I play through, hopefully that will change. As this is more of an initial thoughts. I was going to play through like all 15 of them before presenting this video to you. So yeah, I've enjoyed it quite a lot, and I'm looking forward to playing the rest. I guess hopefully this review will have helped you to decide whether this game is for you or not. I do have a playthrough of the tutorials, and I have a playthrough of the first adventure, so you're welcome to watch either of those, although they are a little bit spoilerish, I suppose. So hopefully that helped you to decide whether or not this game is for you. But for now, I gotta roll.